instances, there are factions, and then everything now is seen through, at the eye of those factions. Even simple things tend to be complicated. But if ever indeed you were to be expelled after 30 days, I don't see him succeeding, in any court in terms of seeking or finding any recourse to the expulsion, because of he was part, and parcel of people who, took, that resolution. So the first step was to take the resolution on the basis of the fact that it is unfair, or it is contrary to the country's constitution, or it is even contrary to the constitution of the ANC when it was adopted. But now to want to cry when you are facing, the very same resolution, it is a little bit opportunistic, and it defies any logic for me.
Prof, do you agree?
No, absolutely, 100%. Although I must accept your initial question was perhaps we need to examine the role of the EFF in this instance.
Yeah.
Look, it's all about political mileage. It's all about taking this opportunity and drive the wedge between the factions in the governing party, and then of course watch dividends, politically speaking, come to bear. I think the EFF, it's rightly so, as Bramish says, a little bit opportunistic, but at the same time, I hold the view that this is at the behest of a political game. These are rules of engagement. When you see your opponent facing struggles elsewhere, you simply want to bargain out of. And what do, which is best, is to drive a wedge that says, why is it that this section is not seeing what we are seeing as from the outside? Ramaphosa has scored 2 points out of 0. Why is there a Kalni house next to Mahashule? But in the end, it's a characterization that says some faction here, which is your so-called RET forces, are pretty much a group of individuals without a compass, morally, politically, and otherwise. And if you go back to what I've been saying to you and your listeners, I've always questioned, what is this thing called RET? Can somebody help me understand? Because 25 years into democracy, here comes a woman who says, look, I can own a bank with the support of other women. We can do this by our own. Why is it that we linger on the narrative that because we can't have access to formal capital, therefore we find ourselves in a corner of poverty? And yet, Tshwane, where you are, you guys carry weekends, white costumes, right? White parties. How many millions do you raise in a year? And you fail to open a bank. And then you have thuggery in Gauteng.
TUT's alumni. Please allow me to break.
Let's call it that way. It's thuggery.
Allow me.
Tenders for Gauteng
are
being confronted by this group to say, we know you've got a tender of 2 million, but a share.
Yeah.
Huh? They go to chase at NCPT, whatever. They chase away hardworking foreigners. Why not campaign that these people should come into this country legally? But you want to take what they have created and make it yours under the RET banner. No, come now. We can't work like this. We can't.
Very valid point. But I was just saying, just to break, TUT's alumni in Ntabeleng Dikotsi is the first, South African to own a mutual bank.
There you go.
Yeah.
They have to take 25 years by the
You are
to
TUT.
produce that. On the one hand, you have a collapsed project, yeah, VBS. Where are we? There's this skewed moral perspective, both political and economic. And we come out and we say, we are thirsty, but our feet are already in the water. Something is wrong here.
I hear you. Now, a very important one as well. Now, there's others viewing that now this motion of the NEC, and largely a lot of people are saying is the president are taking the SG. Is it really how it is? Is it a fight here, the so-called RET, which is which is siding Lebale state capture against what is termed as white monopoly capital, Yabo President Cyril Ramaphosa, Pravin Gordhan. Are those the camps that are fighting at this point in time? And who has an upper hand?
Let's help you pick. When people do not have option in life, and the only way to sustain livelihoods is to go through politics. This is exactly what happens. This is exactly what happens. Huh?
I hear you.
You don't have a wider option in life. And what do? Let me join politics. Maybe get a councillor tomorrow. In that way, I will basically make sure that a councillor is full-time job. Ask me. I'll tell you. My father was one. We never slept. In the middle of the night, a woman will knock in, battered by a husband. You are expected to intervene as a councillor. It has nothing to do with you.
Sure.
And that's why today we have issues around service delivery. Because today you elect a person to become a councillor, the person realizes, get paid between 400,000 and 600,000. Get a time yamahala. Get cell phone yamahala. What do? You move to the city. You leave the poor people alone there. When they need you, you are not available.
Pramish, do you want to jump in, Pramish?
Yeah.
Pramish, do you want to jump in?
No, the prof is quite correct. And I hate, because of when I'm with the prof in your show, it seems as if we were cut from the very same cloth. But let me tell you, in China, in China, they are still executing people, for corruption. And then in France, former President Nicolas Sarkozy has been convicted and is facing the prospect of going to prison for quite a long period of time. The very same thing like Italian law enforcement officers are after Berlusconi. You come to Africa, the very same people who authored our misery. Remember, corruption is not a victimless crime. And we've already spoken about this, that those issues that are murdered through corruption in all its manifestations are required for development. And a failure to develop inflict enormous injury on the lives of people, and that also impacts on the very same dignity and rights that we spoke of, we have been speaking about. But coming to the RET, there is not a single ANC president who has ever implemented the resolution of the ANC that were taken from the conference. From Nelson Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, Jacob Zuma, even now Cyril is struggling with the implementation of those very same resolutions. And don't forget that immediately after Cyril was elected, the very same Secretary General addressed a meeting to say that don't worry, comrades, 5 years is such a small period of time. So from the start, they were deliberate on certain efforts to frustrate his presidency. So the only thing that they could do was to portray and project him as a stooge of white monopoly, the so-called white monopoly capital. And I've been saying that Cyril needs to take 10 minutes when he appears before the State Capture Commission and tell South Africans as to who he is. Because of these people, they are lying to say that Cyril was created by white people or whatsoever. For so many years, ANC has received donations from different, business people. The problem is that this practice became so entrenched and embedded within ANC politics during the time of Jacob Zuma, because of its metamorphose into pure acts of criminality. But Nelson Mandela was known to pick up a phone and call several business people to come and build a school. It is known, but fortunately enough, he never done that for his own personal benefit. What we know today is that we have Zuma billionaires who without merit. Prior to Jacob Zuma becoming a president, the president says that his son was driving a Toyota Corolla, working for an obscure company somewhere. 10 years down the lane, he's a billionaire. He's staying in Saudi Arabia, in whatever Arab foreign countries, and then just spewing leverage against the Republic and everything. So for me, there is no RET. It's just a veneer. It's just a facade to obscure us from real issues. And if ever you were to ask me that, do we really need economic transformation in this country? Yes, we do need economic transformation, but not the one similar to the gibberish that is spewed by your colonials. And the people are quite, articulated. When you look at it, it's not easy to wake up in the morning and murder your own mother for the benefit, to lie to comrades so that they should have sympathy in you and borrow you money and everything. So the truth of the matter is that serial a decision was taken that we were going to frustrate this president. And if ever you were to ask me that they were successful in creating that frustration, yes, they were successful in creating that frustration because of he has to every day look at his back when he is added to the house. So it is very sad because of at the end of the day, failure to govern impact on the quality of services that people were supposed to receive on the ground.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Correct. 41 after 7 o'clock. Because of time, I want us to jump into human rights. Then I think it's also interlinked to the kind of leadership that we have in our society. Human Rights Day commemoration. What is it that we should be focusing on as a country, or that we were supposed to be focusing on as a country and as a continent? I saw there's been a lot of celebrations or other appreciations of the late Tanzania president Magufuli being regarded as one of the vibrant leaders in terms of displaying proper leadership. Can we say the same about South Africa?
I wish we could. I don't think so. Yeah, we're still a long way to go there.
Yeah.
At the time when you recently had a death of supposedly a student in the hands of those who are supposed to protect us, and that is the SAPS. But again, it's basic issues in the Dehade.
Yeah.
You can't celebrate human rights when shanty towns are spiraling all over the show. You cannot celebrate human rights when the very state is facing a deliberate campaign targeted at it right at the core in terms of state-owned enterprises to say, let's collapse the system. It cannot be. Today we're faced with 600 odd employees from SABC, who, thanks to the reckless leadership of politicians in this country, SABC is collapsing. It can be.
Sure.
It can be. Families out there are facing the prospect of hunger, of poverty. And here we are, we want to say, look, we are a country that is highly celebrated globally for having produced one of the best constitutions, and therefore our human rights culture is up there with the best in the world. No, it is not. Until such time that we don't have latrine toilets for our basic education beneficiaries, and that is the learners in rural areas.
Yeah.
The issue of corruption, the issue of making sure that service delivery is there. But we sit today with a court judgment that says you went out, you bought scooters, the tender was irregular, and you spent 10 million. 10 million that otherwise could have made a difference in the lives of those who are in the rural areas. How do we celebrate human rights?
Sure. Pramesh, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, it is very difficult. The problem is this gradual metamorphosing of the ANC into a criminal syndicate that competes with ordinary citizens for commercial, contracts. That thing is very dangerous. It has also led to the erosion and corrosion of, citizens' rights. But what is key, sometimes we must just ask ourselves, how does an ordinary man feel on the street? This human rights, culture doesn't have to find meaning in higher places, in your Eiffel Towers or whatever, the capital cities of the world or in Sante. It's all about the citizens of Tembisa, of Diepsloot, of Alexander, of Matlosana. I've seen, I was in Matlosana, the roads are you cannot navigate your way through that town. You ask yourself, who are the people who were responsible for these tar roads and everything? And these are comrades, working in collusion or in collaboration with some rotten elements under so-called business forum and everything. And on the process, we don't want only to live, we want to live a dignified life. And that dignity comes from the fact that these rights, they shouldn't be there in chapter 2 of the Constitution to be talked about by, there is this, famous human rights guy, Jones or whatever. We want to see them living in people. And how are we going to see them, living in people? We need a psychological earthquake. It is all in the palm of our hand. It is no longer possible to trust these people who are leading us. Look at the contradictions on so-called leaders. Today, people are prepared to kill for this. Tomorrow, they are in Gandla. Tomorrow, someone is defending someone on something that is totally indefensible. So my point is that we need to go back to what our mothers did around the 1980s when the ANC was in exile and what the students did around 1970s. The key is right at the palm of our hands to decide what we are going to do. But I'm saying that these human rights must manifest themselves in our neighbors, in the workers who go to public hospitals without any medication because of tenders, to provide medication have been given to people with political connection so that money should come and finance, the campaign of certain, corrupt councillors and everything. Yeah. So that is where actually we need to stop by selecting people that are not there. Prof has spoken and said something very important. You see, the problem is that we have people who cannot eke out a living outside the political, space.
Yeah.
So for them to survive, they want to remain permanently on those political positions, create patronage network system to say that, and those patronage network system linked to criminal elements to say that, look at the political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. It's just because of when a council is about to be removed, he called a meeting and say that, look, they want to take me out of the position. Know that if ever I'm out of the position, you are no longer going to get tender. And that is easy money. People are going to die because of now you are saying that for you to be able to survive, I must remain and retain this position permanently. So human rights are going to be just a pipe dream if ever we continue to elect people who are obsessed with their stomachs, who are just loyal to party, principles rather than the principles of reality.
47 after 7. Tshwane FM 93.6. Thank you so much. If you just jumped in, 0123824936. That's 0123824936. Interesting discussions that we're having. Thank you so much to all those that are coming through to us live on YouTube and also on Facebook. On the line, it's Mr. Misha Kantane and Professor Perry Hanyan joining us as analysts for tonight's discussion, looking at the various issues that are affecting us. And rightfully, as we're still speaking about human rights, leadership, and also what has happened in the SABC. And I want us to expand a bit, especially with the SABC. And there's one tweet, I think is from Rahan, if I'm not mistaken. Rahan is from the ENCA. And he made an interesting point that it is the people on top that drove the SABC where it is now. But it is those that are below that are suffering at this point in time. And this is what I want us to jump into. But also another, disturbing thing is that there's tweets about Pitandoro, who's, from Zimbabwe, not being retrenched perhaps. And people are not happy with that. And there's people on Twitter, and there's particularly a secretary of Black Twitter who's saying, those tweets about Pitandoro further exposes the entrenched xenophobia in this country. You all just hate your fellow Black African brothers. How many white foreign journalists work at the SABC, but you only want to see a Black man down? Sis, I want us to first, let's speak about the retrenchments. It's been coming. It has arrived now. It's, they are out of employment, these people, and it is not it is not their fault. They are not at the helm of the SABC. They were not decision makers, and I don't think they're the only ones. AN7 at some point had a similar thing with the new age where people had to be retrenched. SAA as well, and these are hard times. Where do we start, Prof? Bramish,
the issue of SABC is so sad because of, remember, that remains one of the largest, broadcasters, probably in the African continent.
Yes.
I don't know about its ranking around the globe, but it's one of the highly, ranked. The fact reality is that, you see, the problem is that South Africa is not some rich, oil-producing country somewhere. Our resources are limited. And there have been some warnings that when you take populist, decisions, they might look, beneficial on the short term, but on the long term, they tend, to be harmful to the proper, administration of whatever, organization or department that we are running. Currently, as we are speaking, all state-owned enterprises are in a very serious, problem. And this problem was brought about as a result of senior management that were not running, those institutions with the required prudency and, proper, financial controls and everything. They were just there, to ensure that they become, channels to give money to certain peoples and everything. So the repercussions of that is the very same situation that we see at the SABC. Unfortunately, the government itself doesn't have unlimited resources to give to these, state-owned enterprises. And when you look at the process, they invoke Section 189 that deals with operational, requirements. And some of these employees, they were actually, persuaded to take voluntary severance packages and everything. And others, just because of, the work culture has become so toxic and whatever, others decided simply to take their monies and go. But if ever we want to operate from the fact that South Africa can print money somewhere to give to state-owned enterprises, we are going to have a very huge problem. The less said about the issue of Peter, the better, except to say that this country, to a certain extent, has lots and lots and lots of foreigners. Professor Tshwane, Vice Chancellor of the University of Pretoria, I'm not lying, he's a Zimbabwean. He's doing quite an excellent work. Pitando has been there. If ever, based on operational requirements, Pitando didn't meet the criteria that was there for retrenchment. What matters is to where they come from, Zimbabwe or Botswana or Johannesburg or everything. That for me is quite, it doesn't assist us going somewhere.
Sure. Said. Prof, please jump in.
Ramesh, well said. I wouldn't want to reduce air a bit, but perhaps one critical issue is here's a country that for some reason we've never succeeded in establishing meritocratic systems in both the public service and the public sector in a way that says we are serious about governance. You invite people like Saudi to come and tell you that, look, I don't have qualifications in media management, but I can turn SABC into a profitable entity. And we should applaud that, right? All because he is perhaps from a populist position, as Bramish says, is seen to be saying the right things. And what is the right things? By merely saying, look, it's 80-90% content, the rest is foreign. Who is in control of the underworld when it comes to issues of broadcasting? Did he ever come out and say, look, we owe it to these sources, we owe it to this authority? And these are the people who set the rules of engagement. So this is our failure as a country.
Sure.
We've allowed people to occupy spaces without merit. And today we were likely to pay a heavy price because we never did our oversight role. We never demanded transparency. We never demanded accountability. You ended up with a board at the SABC where you sit down, you look at profiles. Nobody is a specialist on broadcasting. But because so-and-so is closer to the proximity of authority, such a person is able to gain access and, of course, a reward as in a form of position. It's very sad.
Now, here's an interesting one. In Dabang, yeah.
Here's a point.
Yeah.
You cannot, over a period of time, I don't care whether it was during apartheid or not, you're sitting with an archive and then you sell it to the Guptas for 2 cents. Come on. We have a problem in this country. Typically a problem where when you allow a politician to walk into your kitchen and tell you, I can prepare supper for you, then you know you better have a medical aid. Otherwise, food poisoning is the result of that process.
Sure. Yeah. Here's a tweet here by Indaba Ngumhlaba, and she posted Nokolo picture, and as she was crying, and he says she didn't want to go home and rest, and maybe that's why she was crying. She still wanted to do her calling. Matamela Clowns at SABC cornered her into taking her severance package. So actually, it's a thought that got to me as well, to say perhaps she didn't want to leave, because she left yesterday and today retrenchments have started.
Yeah. Put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
You have bills to pay. And let's not forget, as blacks, you have an extended liability called black tax. You can't go to Lesotho empty-handed. You can't.
Yes.
And even if you were to try and take a vacation, and so forth and so forth, right here, today is the last day. SMS ilotena from your aunt who loved you, but perhaps never did much to take care of you. Today she's old. She looks at you and she says, "Wanaka," and by that she means, when are you sending grocery? And then you talk retrenchments.
Yeah, no, it's just it.
Yeah, we have problems.
All right, let's park it here because of time. And Easter, the president spoke yesterday. What do we make of that? Pramish?
No, hey, there are too much over contradictions, but I can. No, serious. The general anxiety in our country. No, there was lots. I mean, the general anxiety in our country was definitely reflected. I think the president is haggard. He's tired, man. You can tell even when he's. Remember, we have reduced him into a talking president, and to compound his challenges is the fact that immediately when. During the middle of his presidency, COVID-19 came, and then the man is really tired. But the terrible reality is that he must strike a balance against a society that has various interests. And then on the other hand, to a certain extent, we shouldn't underestimate the fact that the economy is battered. Even prior to COVID-19, South Africa was under several downgrades. We have several negative growth and everything. So, I mean, he must always strike the balance is there. And then we are also a very religious, country. And religion also plays a role in terms of calming that particular anxiety that we are talking about. And I was listening to a certain priest who was saying that there is no anecdotal evidence that points to the fact that it is churches that are super spreading, the virus and all the stuff and everything. So to a certain extent, I pardon his contradictions on the basis that these are challenging times. If ever you are really steering a ship under this troubled water, sometimes as people who are in that ship, we must just bump and come back and dust ourselves and proceed with the journey. But it's very difficult. Times.
Prof, let's come to you.
Thank goodness we are not a secular society. Otherwise, this would have borne so much pressure on the president. And I agree with Pramish. He is a tired fellow. There's fires. There's too many irons on the stove to the house. Government, issues of the state. Remember, as a country, we haven't consolidated our foreign policy. When last did we talk about our foreign policy? Yeah, true. Or at least a reference to that, right? There's a situation going on in the northern part of Mozambique. South Africa is silent. People are being bareheaded. People are being massacred en masse. And we are quiet. This is a clear indication that the state, the government, the leadership that is there is in a tight corner and it's not comfortable. At the time when the very same president, as I said earlier on, does not enjoy outright support from Nazareth. Here he is, surrounded by people that, by and large, it's open secret. He cannot trust anyone that's there. If the 30 days, we're now counting what, 28 days? If the SG has to go home and play with grandchildren, obviously Jesse Duarte walks into that office. Can you trust her?
Mm.
And you're the president. You have a deputy president that has demonstrated in the very same conference that he knows where his bread is buttered. These are not the times to sit down and say, you know, we're having it our way as a country. I suppose the Bafana anecdote and narrative is a reflection of where we are as a society. And it's not a comfortable space, yeah?
A minute after 8. Sure. But I see churches are open, alcohol is closed. But someone was saying, so am I going to get drunk and then be allowed to go and drive then get an accident? I don't know. Is that how you interpreted it as well, Prof. Perry? Pramish, is that how you interpreted it?
If you're going to get home, because you might end up under a truck. And a very quick.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Yeah. So, go on, Pramish.
Yeah. No, sorry, Prof. Actually, I was saying that we shouldn't act as if we don't know how South Africa behaves. The relationship between alcohol and South Africans is a very serious problem. So you see, some of the people who blame the president must also take individual responsibility. You shouldn't want to make it if ever things are normal, there is compliance with the alcohol laws and everything. We know that some of the high incidents that happen, accidents that happen on our roads, happen as a result of people coming from alcohol selling places in the wee hours of the morning. We know that there is a link between alcohol consumption and high rates of crime. We know that the beds in hospital are occupied by people who cannot control their alcohol exemption levels and all the stuff. So there is a general problem of alcohol in South Africa, whether COVID is there or it's not there. So when you want to blame the president and say that they say that I must drink inside the tavern and after that, what is going to happen? You should take individual responsibility for how you consume alcohol. We have already said that some of these laws, there are so much over contradictions because of we are not sure as to what the president is trying to address. But that doesn't take individual responsibility. What is it that you are going to lose if ever you stop consuming alcohol for the duration of COVID-19 and after COVID-19 and go and enjoy yourself? There is nothing that you are going to lose because of there is even studies that point to the socio-economic devastations that are brought by consumption of alcohol. It's not the fact that this alcohol companies hire lots of people and pay taxes and everything. The country also pay lots and lots and lots and lots and loses lots and lots and lots of money in terms of managing the effect of alcohol manifesting themselves in issues that I have already mentioned. So South Africans must understand that this is not normal, period. To expect that Cyril Ramaphosa is also a human being and he depends on the advice of the National Coronavirus Command Council, and those are group aspects. Actually, we must not blame Cyril. We must also blame your professors and scientists that are sitting on that particular, panel. Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. 4 minutes after 8. Gentlemen, thank you so much. What are you doing for the Easter weekend? I
don't know, problem. No, we're not part of the society there. Some of us are waiting. Postgrads want their feedback. There's a conference coming up, September for Sun City. You've got to prepare for that. You've got manuscripts that are here, so the office is packed. Something must give in, unfortunately.
Interesting. 4 after 8. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Yeah, no, go check. Yeah.
Let me one, Ramesh.
Yeah, thanks, bro. I'm motivated. I must go back to school.
That's the way to go.
Awesomeness.
I realized that if a Zulu guy has to explain to you, he will make sure that you understand every line. But Umpedi, he wants you to read between the lines. He doesn't care whether you understand or not. Because if a Zulu guy was beating someone, uzokutshela kahle, yemfowethu. Uthe uthi uyangibuka nje ngabona ukuthi kukhona okushaya amanzi. Hayi ngathukuthela. Ngambamba kanje ngamhlanganisa nodonga. Ngamshaya kanje. Wawela phansi, ngamvuza. Ngamhlanganisa nodonga. Ngamshaya kanje. Balamulo makhi kanti-ke ngibhizi ngaye ngiyashaya. But the petty guy, ke letsetsa go tshwana ka mori yako.
The best.
Tshwane FM 93.6.
6:08. Before we wrap it up, just looking at your comments, and the first one was Ntako Balowi. How do I request an interview in Tshwane FM? Ntako, please send the station an inbox on our page. You'll receive a response there from our administrator. And of course, Winky Barnes Papela says 626 journalists lost their job. Things are bad at home. I was thinking of coming back home, but no, Qatar is good for me. Winky, it's quite bad, man. It's quite bad. We're hoping that there could be another way of doing things. And Faith Diale says, I'm sorry to hijack your live show, but why are you hijacking me, Faith? But no, I've been asking, when is the news reading auditions? Please send an inbox. They will definitely respond to you on the Facebook page. This is where we leave it. Thank you so much for your listening pleasure.
West Park. Sit down.